Before the college entrance exam, I secretly hid the love letter that the school beauty, Jang Thursday Gone, had written to my childhood friend, Zhu Fei. Because of that, the two of them missed their chance to be together. For this, he hated me his whole life. Even after he found out that I had secretly loved him, he still said I was jealous, malicious at heart, and that he would never feel anything for me. Later, we both died in a car accident. Just before he passed, he said that if he ever had the chance to live again, he begged me not to interfere with his fate with Jang Thursday Gone a second time. As he wished, after I was reborn, I did not take that love letter. Zhu Fei went on to attend the same university as Jang Thursday Gone, just to be close to her. To get into that university with her, he even left several questions blank on the college entrance exam on purpose. When the results were released, Zhu Fei and Jang Thursday Gone finally got together at the graduation party. At the graduation party, his romantic gesture, deliberately sacrificing his scores for love, spread quickly, and everyone started calling him the god of love on the battlefield. I sat in a dark corner, holding my glass and quietly sipping fruit juice as I watched the two of them surrounded by the crowd. My best friend, Song Shao, next to me was so shocked she couldn't understand. He's gone mad. He's cutting off his own future, just for an uncertain future with Jang Thursday Gone. Yes, this time between his future and Jang Thursday Gone, he chose her. In my previous life, I had stolen his love letter before the exam, trying to help him choose a better path. In return, all I got was his lifetime of resentment. Even after he realized I loved him, he still looked at me with disgust and said, "Wen-shen, I have no interest in someone whose jealousy runs so deep and whose mind is so vicious. Your so-called affection just disgusts me." The truth was I didn't just keep the letter. The night after the exams ended, I gave it back to him. But when he brought the letter to Jang Thursday Gone, she rejected him. "Zhu Fei, there's such a big gap in our scores, we won't even end up in the same university. How could we possibly be together 4 years apart? I need a boyfriend who can stay by my side any time. Can he do that?" Gofei came home in a daze and looked at me with cold eyes. The next day, his parents rushed to find me, saying he was planning to change the university he'd already chosen and begged me to talk him out of it. I wasn't too surprised, but when I found him before I could say anything, he looked straight at me and sneered, "What? Stealing the love letter once wasn't enough, Wen-shen. Now you want to ruin everything again." Standing at the top of the stairs in the summer breeze on a perfectly sunny day that still somehow felt chilly, I looked down at his frustrated, defeated face and only said, "Goofy, to get to this point, you've worked 12 long years." In the end, because his parents threatened him with their lives, Goofy gave up the IDOF, changing his plans, and he still couldn't be with Jang Thursday Gone. From then on, I became the culprit who had ruined their fate, the target of his resentment every time he remembered, until the very last moment of our lives. In that blood-soaked, suffocating car, he rasped, "If I could do it all over again, Wen-shen, please don't think you know what's best. Don't interfere in our fate." So when I was reborn again, I did as he wished. I didn't steal the love letter before the college entrance exam. Zhu Fei finally read it on time and found out that Jang Thursday Gone also liked him. She'd only been hesitant because she worried their gap was too big to bridge. Then he burned all his bridges and left himself no way out. He abandoned the multiple choice questions. His score was nearly 100 points lower than in the previous life. In the end, he succeeded in closing the distance and finally stood beside her. After 3 rounds of toast, someone suddenly mentioned me with a sigh at first. I thought the one who would end up with Zhu Fei was Wen-shen. They grew up together after all, and their grades were always about the same. But Zhu Fei quickly denied it, probably afraid Jang Thursday Gone would misunderstand. His voice was cold and distant. Just ordinary childhood acquaintances. I smiled quietly and repeated those 4 words in my heart, ordinary childhood acquaintances. But Zhu Fei wasn't wrong. We really had known each other since we were small. From the first day of school to high school graduation, we were always in the same class. Besides my own parents, the person who had been by my side the longest was probably Zhu Fei. I had seen him stay up all night just to solve a set of problems. He had seen me take exams while burning with a 40-degree fever. No one knew better than we did just how much effort it took to be effortlessly ranked in the top 3 every time, as everyone thought we did. On the day we entered high school as the top 2 scorers, Zhu Fei pointed to the first 2 photos on the admissions list and asked me, "This'll be us 3 years from now, Wen-shen. Do you believe it?" Behind the boy, the summer dust clouds were blazing, cicadas shrilled hoarse and dry in the warm air. Hugging my books, I tilted my head and looked at him. "Goofy, it's a promise." Back then, what we saw in each other's eyes was the same: dreams for the future, longing for our ideals, and the determination to achieve them no matter what. But soon enough, in Jiu Fei's eyes, there was also John Thursday gone. In those school years, when most of us were disheveled and grinding away for our goals, only Jang Thursday gone stayed effortlessly beautiful. At the cultural festival, not long after we enrolled, she stood in the middle of the stage in a white dress like a bright moon descending to earth, her gentle glow softening everything around her. Only she caught everyone's eye. From that night onward, Jang Thursday Gon's name spread through all the classes, and she successfully became the bright moon in every boy's heart, including Jiu Fei. The first time I realized something was wrong was after he helped deliver test papers to the neighboring class. He came back and sat down with his ears slightly red. The test paper before him was the one we were supposed to be working on for 4 evening self-study periods, but he'd only written a single heading. On his scratch paper, among the densely packed formulas, there were 3 characters that didn't belong: Jang Thursday gone. Even though he'd drawn many lines across the name, he couldn't cover it completely. Later, I heard that when he was delivering the papers, Jang Thursday gone and her friends had been joking around. She accidentally bumped into him and wrapped her arms around him in the commotion. Jiu Fei froze for a moment before straightening his face and saying, "Be careful." Jang Thursday gone simply smiled at him and said, "Sorry, top student. Oh, and by the way, you're really handsome." Around them, a chorus of cheers and teasing erupted. The always composed and reserved Jiu Fei actually looked flustered. In some ways, Jiu Fei and I were quite similar: rational, calm, and steady like warm water, while Jang Thursday gone was emotional and lively, like dropping a fizzy tablet into that water. And she was a beautiful fizzy tablet. So it didn't surprise me that Jiu Fei was drawn to her. It was just like so many idol dramas and romance novels where the male and female leads always have contrasting personalities, and it's always said people are drawn to what they themselves lack. There were countless examples. The cold CEO and the Cinderella, the model student and the troublemaker, the aloof flower and the little sun. At the time, I believed that even if Jiu Fei's heart was moved, he would still understand what was most important. But the boy who had always been so rational and self-disciplined still rebelled once for Jang Thursday gone. Honestly, I don't really know how he grew close to Jang Thursday gone. Every day was so exhausting with our heavy workload that I barely had time to care about myself. The only things I ever talked to him about were problem-solving methods, test answers, and whether he'd finished preparing for the next exam. By the time I realized how close they had become, Jang Thursday gone was already calling him bookworm, and Mr. Perfect and Jiu Fei didn't even seem surprised anymore. Every Saturday morning he always had something urgent, which was actually a small gathering Jang Thursday gone had organized. I knew Jiu Fei liked her, but even so, it didn't make me stop focusing on my own path. I kept burying my head in my studies instead of watching their relationship unfold until the national physics competition in 11th grade. The school planned to hold several rounds of selection to pick one student to participate. In the final round, 5 students competed for the one spot. Guo Fei didn't show up because Jang Thursday gone had fainted from a fever. After bringing her to the hospital, he stayed with her the whole afternoon at her request. I didn't really know how to describe my feelings then. I just remember running to the hospital and finally finding him in the corridor, and all my emotions turned into a single confused sentence. Jiu Fei, he leaned against the wall, his expression calm as he said, "I've lived by the rules for so many years, I should rebel at least once, shouldn't I?" So he abandoned all the painstaking preparation, forgot all the nights he'd stayed up solving problems even when he was sick. Looking at that handsome, elegant boy in front of me in that moment, he felt so unfamiliar. My eyes stung with tears. I couldn't quite explain, but I didn't say anything. Still, I knew perfectly well that Jiu Fei's behavior wasn't a good sign. So when he was about to face the second big choice in his life, I helped him make it in advance. I took away the love letter that Jang Thursday gone had left for him the night before the college entrance exam. Before that, I'd already prepared myself for the day after the exams. Jiu Fei would confess to her and they would finally be together. I had even prepared my blessing. But I didn't expect that on my way back to the classroom to grab my laptop after the meeting for the top 100 students, I would see the whole scene of Jang Thursday gone placing the letter in the empty classroom. She stood by Guo Fei's desk chatting with her friends. The reason she approached Guo Fei was because of a bet with her friends to chase after the top student Guo Fei. Somewhere along the way, she had genuinely fallen for him, but she still felt the gap between them was too wide and she didn't want to end up alone in an unfamiliar city. So even though she knew Ji-Fei liked her, she kept emphasizing that they were just classmates. The love letter was to express that she hoped to attend the same university and to show her desire to be with him. Before that moment, I had been certain that no matter what, Ji-Fei would never give up his future for anyone, but in that instant I wasn't so sure anymore. To prevent even a 1% chance, after they left I went in and took the letter. After countless times facing Gofei's mockery, I often wondered whether I'd been wrong from the very beginning. One time I tried to talk to him calmly. Gofei, even if he'd read it back then, what difference would it have made? Would you really have stayed with her? And he let out a cold laugh, cutting me off with absolute certainty, when Sean I would have. I was silent for a long time, looking at him before finally smiling faintly. That was the first time I realized I truly had done something wrong, terribly wrong. When the graduation party was almost over, Jang Thursday Gone pulled Ji-Fei over to me, smiling brightly as she lifted her glass. When Xian, you've been with Ji-Fei for 18 years. No matter how ordinary your relationship, it's different from everyone else's, so you'll give us your blessing, won't you? I looked at the boy beside her in his black t-shirt, looking bright and unburdened, and I smiled politely as I corrected her. It's not that I've been with Ji-Fei for 18 years. We simply happened to walk the same road and were companions for 18 years, but from now on our paths will diverge. There are plenty of people today wishing you happiness. My absence won't matter. I wish you too a bright future, and I meant it sincerely. After all of us came from ordinary families who didn't study so hard for a better future. In my previous life, Ji-Fei had been admitted to a top university, became the favorite student of the most prestigious physics professor, met countless esteemed mentors, and made friends with peers who shared his ambitions. With the best resources in the country, he threw himself into the research he loved. His name, Gofei, appeared in academic journals again and again. His face spoke confidently at research conferences, a bright future. The only regret was Jang Thursday Gone, his lifelong obsession. Sometimes at class reunions, people would gossip about who she was dating, who she'd broken up with, or which rich heir had spent thousands to confess to her. The last I heard about her was one Lunar New Year she was about to get married. That night, Ji-Fei got drunk with friends, and when he came back, he knocked on my door. My parents were out. I had just opened the door when he stormed in, furious and mocking. When Sean, you must be so happy now, aren't you? She's getting married. Are you satisfied? I stood calmly by the sofa, listening to all of it before pouring him a cup of warm water. He didn't take the cup. Truthfully, after so many years, I was tired too. Watching him gradually fall into a deep sleep from the exhaustion of all that emotion, I pulled a blanket over him without much thought. When I returned to my room, I received gossip from Song Zhao, who always had a way of knowing things through her complicated network of friends. She'd heard that Zhang Thursday Gansei was a newly rich businessman who had fallen in love with her at first sight at a friend's birthday party. While she was being pursued, she already had a boyfriend. At first she refused, but later the nouveau rich simply kept throwing money at her until she finally agreed to break up. I stared down silently at the message. Suddenly I wondered if Ji-Fei really had abandoned his future for Zhang Thursday Gone, how would it all have ended in the end? I thought I would never know how that other choice might have played out, but unexpectedly. I was sent back to the past and allowed to start everything over again, and this time Ji-Fei finally got what he wished for. Watching the two of them return hand in hand to the middle of the crowd, everyone cheering for them to kiss, I drank the last of the juice in my glass and turned to leave. I'd imagined countless what-if scenarios, but Ji-Fei always believed no matter what, even if he and Zhang Thursday Gone attended the same university, he would still achieve the same heights by relying on his own abilities. No one knew what the real answer would be, but Ji-Fei I'll be watching in this life. Apart from Ji-Fei's choice, nothing else changed. I still passed the entrance exam with the same score as before and was accepted into the mathematics program I'd always dreamed of. All through the summer before school began, Ji-Fei and I didn't see each other again because he was traveling with Zhang Thursday Gone to celebrate graduation. I found a part-time job tutoring middle school students. Sometimes when I ran into Gofei's parents by chance, I could always see the faintly bitter smiles they wore when they greeted me and the few new strands of silver in their black hair. I wondered if they would ever know why Ji-Fei, who had never dropped out of the top 3, who had both talent and diligence, suddenly underperformed in the college entrance exam. They worried so much he might not recover, doing everything they could to comfort him and forcing a smile as they sent him off to travel and clear his head. For a moment, I wasn't sure which was kinder, letting them know the truth or leaving them in the dark forever. But looking at them, I couldn't help feeling a deep sour ache in my heart. After all, besides my own parents, they were the elders I'd spent the most time with growing up. For years, because my parents were always busy with work, I'd eaten lunch at Gofei's house almost every day. His mother always made sweet and sour ribs, my favorite dish, and she knew all my tastes by heart. She would remind Jiufei to look after me at school and not let other classmates pick on me. Back then, Jiufei would hold a slice of watermelon in his hand, answering calmly, "Don't worry, I won't let anyone bully her." I was quiet by nature, and because my grades were good, I got along with the other girls in class. But Gofei was often treated with cold indifference since he was so different from the rowdy boys his age. Not that he ever cared, because he was always by my side. I had once thought our paths would always run side by side. I never expected that halfway through he would turn away. The next time I saw Jiufei was at the high-speed rail station on the day we were leaving for university. In the previous life, we had gone to the same city. Today, I was heading north, and he, together with Zhang Thursdaygon, was going south. The waiting hall was noisy and crowded. They were sitting together. As I walked past, I saw them watching a relationship blogger's video, analyzing 10 signs your boyfriend really loves you. Goofy nodded occasionally in agreement with her commentary. Maybe because he'd spent 2 months traveling, it might be because he'd spent 2 months His usually pale complexion had tanned, the skin on his forehead darker than before. On his arm was a fresh tattoo, JTN, the initials of Zhang Thursdaygon. They were wearing matching clothes. He looked more and more like a stranger, a Goofy that no longer existed in my memory. Then he sensed my gaze and lifted his head to look at me. Separated by a row of seats, I met his eyes calmly and smiled faintly as a greeting. He froze for a moment, then reflexively shifted his tattooed arm behind him. When Zhang Thursdaygon turned to ask him something, he quickly looked away and told her, judging by his lips, nothing. Just then my train arrived. As I lined up to have my ticket checked and walked into the gate, I could feel a pair of eyes locked on my back the whole time. I knew exactly whose eyes they were. But I didn't look back. After I boarded and found my seat, I saw a new message from Jiufei. I stared at it for a long moment, thinking about how this might become our new pattern messages sent out of habit. Every now and then, until someday words that sounded utterly ordinary would end up being the last conversation we'd ever have in our lives. My thoughts wandered as I finally looked at the message. It was a very short line. "Wenshan, I also wish you a bright future." Of course, I would have a bright future. I would step onto a new stage and discover a wider world, surrounded by talented people from all over the country. I'd enter a circle completely different from before. In this place, there were countless people who were not only hardworking, but also gifted beyond measure. People who were humble but capable everywhere you looked. And as my perspective broke free from the confines of one small school, I realized that Zhang Thursdaygon wasn't really so impossibly beautiful after all. She'd only ever been framed in a lens of illusion, while many who were quietly chasing their dreams had hidden their own radiance. Here, as everyone shed their uniforms and stepped into fields they truly understood, each person became their own unique gem. I began to focus on my studies, discussing topics with professors and classmates, joining competitions. Whenever I went home for break, it always seemed to fall just out of sync with Goofy's schedule. When we returned for Lunar New Year, he would go back to the city, so for 4 years we never saw each other once. The next time we met was at a class reunion 4 years later. 4 years can change so much. The boys and girls who had once been so innocent were now mature and composed. They shouted out their plans for the future, shared the competitions they'd entered, and compared the offers they'd received. Every one of them carried the glow of prestigious universities, their arms full of awards. Though they hadn't yet stepped into society, their futures already shone bright. Because of traffic, I was the last to arrive. As soon as I stepped in the door, everyone enthusiastically pulled me into the middle of the crowd. Since we all had similar experiences, I quickly blended into the center of the conversation. While I was comfortably chatting with them about the past 4 years, someone suddenly pointed at me and pretended to be indignant. You guys don't know, back in sophomore year, several of our universities co-hosted a debate competition. I ended up facing Wen-chen back then. We were completely crushed by her flawless logic. Honestly, she didn't show any old friendship at all. I smiled at him. "You're exaggerating." He refused to let it go, still teasing. Really couldn't tell when Xian always used to look so gentle and quiet, but during a debate she's absolutely ruthless, pressing in step by step without giving an inch. I'm curious, are you like that when you argue with your boyfriend too? That set off a burst of laughter. Then someone suddenly turned to look toward Ji Fei, as if remembering something. Hey, where's Jen Thursday gone? Our love warrior, your school beauty didn't come with you? Only then did I notice Ji Fei, who had been sitting silently in the corner the whole time. Just like the rest of us, he had changed a lot. The humility and confidence that used to be in his eyes had completely disappeared. How to describe it? Although he was still as quiet and restrained as ever, sitting here now he somehow felt out of place. Like an outsider no one was paying attention to. The boys who once admired him and called him the god of love had become young men with better resources and broader horizons. Bringing up this topic again seemed to carry a subtle shift in everyone's tone. There was a faint teasing and even a trace of pity. After all, he had once been the undisputed champion among us. Now there wasn't even a topic he could easily join in. Behind me, Song Zhao held her glass and sighed softly. Reality really is reality, nothing like an idle drama. If this were a drama for years later, he'd have pulled off a big comeback and succeeded brilliantly. But in real life, Ji Fei isn't any more handsome or more successful. He's fallen further and further behind you, really he doesn't deserve you now. I gave a small laugh, meaning to correct her auntie. It's not about who deserves who. What matters is whether two people are really walking the same path. Maybe she misunderstood my meaning. She smiled and told me. Yao Fei said he's preparing for graduate school entrance exams. He's applying to the university he once dreamed of, coincidentally the same city where you studied. Maybe when he gets in, I gently interrupted Auntie. I'm planning to go abroad for graduate school and I already have a boyfriend. I just haven't had time to tell my parents. At that moment, Ji Fei came back inside. He was in the kitchen washing his hands. We were sitting on the sofa. I didn't know if he'd heard. He stood with his back to me, unmoving. After a few quiet seconds, perhaps to ease the tension, his mother asked me about my boyfriend. I smiled and told her how we'd met. He was a fellow competitor at an academic event, gentle, calm, disciplined. He had earned his bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in succession, winning national awards every year. He knew calligraphy and chess. He could even play the drums. Then I took out my phone and showed her a photo of him delivering a keynote at an academic forum. After she finished looking, I said he's the person I love and the partner who will walk alongside me. The topic ended there on the way home. I suddenly thought of Ji Fei standing at the sink, sleeves rolled up, the faint scar on his forearm. It was where he had erased the tattoo. For a moment, time seemed to overlap. That name he had scribbled over and over on scratch paper was the start of everything with Young Thursday gone, and the faded tattoo now was the sign it had ended. The surge of youthful hormones had finally receded like the tide going out. The tangled thread between Ji Fei and me had nearly unraveled completely. I had once been so curious what fate he would face after choosing a different road. I had wondered whether he could still reach the heights he had in my past life in a world now crowded with countless competitors. And I had wondered how his family, who had spent so many years nurturing his dreams, would find the strength to support him again. I have to admit, a part of me wanted to see him struggle to prove that in the last life my interference had been right. But deep down I knew I was wrong. In Dickens' The Mystery of Edwin Drood, there is a line. The truest politeness is not to meddle in other people's affairs, and once you meddle, you must be prepared to take responsibility. So this time I stayed firmly in my place. I didn't interfere with any of Goofy's choices. In the past life, he had regretted never being with Jong Thursday gone. In this one, I don't know if he regretted throwing away those 21 multiple-choice questions, but that is the strange thing about fate. There is never one perfect choice. No matter what you pick, there will always be regrets. What matters is taking responsibility for the consequences. And now I no longer cared out Goofy's fate. After all, life is long. Whether he one day rose again to the top or simply faded away into obscurity, it no longer had anything to do with me. I no longer looked back, I kept moving forward. 3 years studying abroad, my boyfriend and I would be long distance. One day Song Zhao called me and teased, Tian, you're really going away for 3 whole years. Aren't you worried your relationship will fade? I was working on a deadline, answering calmly, even if we're apart, we're still moving toward the same goal. Our hearts will only grow closer. She clicked her tongue teasingly, then switched topics. Do you remember Jong Thursday gone? She married that nouveau rich guy who fell in love with her at first sight. The wedding was lavish, all the old classmates went, everyone envied her too bad. Less than 2 years later, he found someone younger and prettier and started the same kind of extravagant pursuit. After he cheated, Jung Thursday Gone made a scene, but in the end the man asked for a divorce. She refused, and now they're wasting time in a bitter standoff. I listened indifferently, realizing her face had grown hazy in my mind. Aside from remembering she was very beautiful, I couldn't recall any details. Even when she and Jufei were together, she had never seemed special to me. I had never seen her as a rival. From start to finish, she and I simply belonged to two different worlds. Maybe seeing I wasn't interested, Song Zhao didn't bring her up again. Instead, she sighed. Jufei took the graduate exams twice and missed the cutoff by 0.1 points both times. So unlucky, I finally finished my deadline and sighed in relief. I answered indifferently, well, I wish him luck. Not long after, I suddenly received a message that was quickly unsent. It was from Jufei, but I didn't ask when I returned home later. A friend threw a welcome party. Jufei came too. He asked if I'd seen that message. I shook my head. It was the middle of the night. I said I was asleep. He laughed bitterly, explaining I had a fragmented dream. I thought the dream was real. It's fine and glad I didn't disturb you. I kept smiling politely, though I knew I'd lied awkwardly. While he had been dreaming in the dead of night, it had been broad daylight where I was, but it didn't matter anymore. Just like that unsent message. When Xian, you used to like me, didn't you? The answer no longer mattered. What mattered was that I was walking my own path further and further, and the person I loved was waiting for me up ahead. Watching his thin, lonely figure walk away, my boyfriend came over carrying a small dessert. He asked me softly who that was. I looked away and took his arm, smiling without a care, just an old friend I knew growing up the end.